Hey everybody, I am Shannon Davidson with Salt and Clay, and we are launching a brand new Bible study called In Her Shoes, Following in the Footsteps of Jesus with 4 women of faith. And as we prepare for Easter, we are going to be getting into the scriptures and really into the shoes of 4 amazing women that were with Jesus through his life and ministry. And I want to introduce you to these 4 women of faith who are going to be sharing with us about these different women. And why don't we just go around the circle here? I'm going to start with Amber, and we'll just go around and each of you can introduce yourselves and who you will be sharing with during this study.
Hi, I'm Amber Slaybaugh, and I will be sharing about Mary, the mother of Jesus.
Hi, I'm Bethany Jacob, and I'll be sharing about Martha.
I'm Helen Steinkamp, and I'll be sharing about Mary Magdalene.
And I'm Kelly Earhart, and I'll be sharing about Martha's sister, Mary of Bethany.
Well, I wanted to give a little background on setting the scene for today. This week and next week, we're going to be hearing from our teachers about Mary of Bethany and her sister Martha, who, along with their brother Lazarus, were present for Jesus' final miracle before all of the trouble started for him as he made his way to Jerusalem. Jesus loved this family, Mary, Martha, and her brother, and their brother Lazarus, and spent a lot of time with them relaxing. Today, we're going to take a closer look, though, at Mary of Bethany and her relationship with Jesus, because though Jesus related to the family, he also related to each of the individuals. And so we're excited to hear from Kelly today and sharing with us about Mary of Bethany.
Thank you, Helen. So I was really excited to learn about Mary of Bethany because I tend to be more of a Martha. And we know that Jesus commends Mary in the story, and I'll go into that in a second. But I was really interested in just learning how I could have a relationship with him more like she did. And so we see Mary 3 times in the New Testament. The first time I just kind of touched on is when Jesus is at she and Martha's house, and Martha's busy running around getting dinner ready and doing all these things, and Mary is sitting at Jesus' feet just listening to him. And Martha comes in and she's all upset because Mary's not helping her, and she tells Jesus, tell my sister to help me, I'm doing all this by myself. And it's that famous line where he says, Martha, Martha, Mary has chosen what is best, and what was best was not to be too busy and too distracted to sit at Jesus' feet. So we see that first in Luke 10 is the first time that we are introduced to Mary. The second time is in John 11, and this is after her brother and Martha's brother Lazarus has just died. Jesus is coming to their house, and Mary runs out to him and falls at his feet and says, Lord, if you had been here, my brother wouldn't have died. And she leaves the mourners that are in her house and just goes to him. And then the third time we see her is after that, and that's in John 12, when Lazarus has been raised to life by Jesus, and a feast is thrown in Jesus' honor. And the disciples are there, and Martha, of course, is serving dinner. And Mary comes in with this expensive jar of perfume worth a year's worth of wages. It was probably her dowry. And she pours it on Jesus' feet and wipes it with her hair. And she does this in the middle of dinner in front of everyone. And she's not worried about what's going on. She just wants to bless and love on Jesus and worship him. And I think when we look at these 3 scenes, what really struck me was a couple things. And it's first is that in each scene, she's always at Jesus' feet, whether she's sitting at Jesus' feet or she's falling at Jesus' feet. That is where she is positioned. And then second is that she does not care what else is going on. So in the first scene where Martha's rushing around getting dinner ready, Mary is not worried that there are things to be done. Mary isn't worried that she's offending her sister. She is at Jesus' feet. And in the second scene, again, she's not worried about leaving all these mourners that are in her house and being inhospitable. She's also not worried about being really honest with Jesus and telling him her disappointment that he didn't save her brother, which shows her faith that she thought he could have saved him. What she doesn't know is that he can also raise him to life, which is what's about to happen. But she's totally honest, and she's not worried again about what's going on. She just goes to him. And then in the third scene, we see her most sacrificial act of worship to him, where she is not worried about that it's dinner time. She's not worried about that there's a whole bunch of people in the room. She's not worried that it's inappropriate culturally to do what she did as a woman showing affection to a man who's not her husband. She's not worried about the expense of her perfume. She's not worried that she might be giving away her dowry, which is her future. She just wants to love on and bless Jesus. And I think in all of these things, she's just not worried about what else is going on. She wants to fall at his feet and worship him. And she's just so passionate. She goes all in every single time. And so that was really inspiring to me. And it really made me question, like, wow, am I sacrificing anything to worship Jesus? Am I that much, all in? And so I was inspired, and I kind of wanted to challenge myself, like, how can I sit at Jesus' feet more, and what do I need to sacrifice to do that? And for me, as a mom of tiny kids, most of my time spent with Jesus is reading my Bible at the breakfast table with everyone and everything going on around me. And I'm usually reading and journaling, and that's my quiet time. And I really felt moved to have more of a real quiet time where I can sit in stillness and silence. Oh, you gotta go, bud. Sorry. And there he is. But stillness and silence. And so to me, it was being able to wake up early before everyone and having that quiet time where I could really just sit at his feet and worship him and listen. And so that was kind of my thing that I was going to do. And what happened was, exactly in that time, I'm in my first trimester of pregnancy, and I came down with horrible morning sickness and just fatigue. And so doing anything, even the minimum of normal things, was really hard for me. And it was all day. It wasn't just in the morning. It was actually the worst in the afternoon. But day after day after day, I was not getting up before anyone. And I got really down on myself that I wasn't doing this thing that I had committed to with God, to have quiet time with him. And I started really beating myself up about it. Like, wow, like it, am I missing my calling that he wants me to do right now? Is this because of fear of bothering my family? Why am I so weak about this? I'm just failing, like super hard things that I was telling myself. And then every day around like 4 o'clock, which is when I felt the worst, like the most sick, the most tired, and then everything's going on, like you have to get dinner ready and all this stuff, I would just get so cranky, and I would get cranky with my family. And then I'd get more down on myself because I knew that not only was I not doing the thing that I had committed to do, but now I was acting in a way that I knew I shouldn't be. And so I finally recognized, like, this is not from God. God is not the one who's beating me up about this. This is me. And so I went to him and I just said, Jesus, I'm so sorry that I haven't done this thing that I've committed to with you. And it's the very thing I'm inspired to teach on. I'm so sorry for being cranky with my family. And I had to apologize to them too. And I just said, but I know you've called me to sit at your feet. Will you help me? And when will I feel like myself again? And Jesus is just so good, because here I was being all hard on myself, and he gave me 2 answers. And the first one was, when I said, when will I be like myself again? He said, well, my daughter, I'm not making you more like yourself. I'm making you more like me. And typical me, and probably Martha, I wanted to schedule in my sacrifice time be obedient, check it off a list, and feel good about my accomplishment for the day. And he was like, no, I'm going to give you something that's out of your control, that you're going to have to lean on me, and I'm going to teach you to be more like me in this, not like you. So that was the first thing that I learned. And then the second was just over and over, I kept hearing him say, the joy of the Lord is my strength. The joy of the Lord is my strength, from Nehemiah 8:10. And that to me was where it really spoke to my heart, that it was in those moments in the afternoon, especially, where I was feeling so weak, that he was going to be my strength. And that was what I needed, to have joy, to not be cranky. And he was giving that to me. He was offering that, and I just needed to receive it. So it was that he was making me more like him, and that I had his joy as my strength. And so going back to Mary, how does this all kind of fit in? And I realized that not only was her worship sacrificial, and I think Jesus really models that having alone time with God is important, and that's something that we should aspire to do. But Mary was her lesson, I think, is a little bit different, in that every single time she was at Jesus' feet, that was when a lot was going on. We don't know if she had a quiet time with him ever, or a scheduled thing every day. She was at his feet in the busy times of day. She was at his feet when dinner should be getting made. She was at his feet, when people were in her house. She was at his feet when, a dinner was happening. And so that really struck me, like, wow, it's not just about, making that quiet time. It's falling at his feet when a lot is going on, and even when people are going to be offended sometimes. So she wasn't worried about the right time of day and who was there. She just wanted to be there. And it wasn't even just about being obedient. It was about that her heart just wanted to worship Jesus. It was beyond obedience. It was, she loved him so much that nothing mattered to her even more. And so that just really spoke to me, was her heart to worship him. So what I got from that for myself was just that lately, when it's that hard time of day, that's exactly when I need to fall at his feet and worship him. And worshiping him might look like serving my family, but with a joyful heart. And so that was just a really helpful lesson for me, that has really changed each day. And I haven't beat myself up about it anymore, which is good. But I think it's so interesting too, the way that Jesus answered me when I reached out to him was so loving and so kind. And even though I felt like I'd been failing, he was just gentle and loving about it. And I have it in that he tells us that we love because he first loved us. And I think that's completely true. And I feel like there's something that Mary probably experienced in that, to where she had experienced his love in a way that just made her want to adore and worship him all the time and sit at his feet. And so I just want to encourage you, wherever you're at in your life, where can you be mindful of sitting at his feet, even when it's a busy time of day, or a hard time of day, or a hard time of life even. He is with you all the time, every day and all day. And he's right there waiting for you to sit at his feet, even if it seems like the wrong time, or even the wrong audience. There's a lot of people who it might not seem like the best time to worship him around, but he's there waiting for us. And so Mary is our example of passionately seeking to love and know Jesus more. And she shows us this can be done anytime and all the time. And I just wanted to close with a prayer, and it's that, God, please give us a heart to want to sit at your feet more than anything. Thank you for making yourself available to each of us, and for lovingly helping us to know you more. May we worship you well. Amen. Thank you, guys.
Wow. Kelly, you've given us a lot to think about.
Thank you.
I mean, I always had a picture of Mary, just her devotion, but you really pointed out some fine points that I hadn't thought of before. And I also like the way you were transparent about your own struggles in your life, to try to bring more of the Mary type of close fellowship with Jesus in.
Mhm.
And I really like that you gave us all permission to do that, because Mary's a hard act to follow.
I know. And I felt like I was approaching her like a Martha would, it's like, okay, we're going to have a task and we're going to accomplish it and it's going to be great. And it's like, no, that's not the lesson. So thank you, but
That was awesome.
thanks.
I was thinking about something you had shared, Kelly, about you saw a post, I think it was an Instagram post that Shara Ray, one of our Salt and Clay gals, shared. And it was, I think you said it was a picture of her studying her Bible, writing in her journal or typing.
Yeah.
And the kids are, all around. And I think you said something like the title was The Dishes Can Wait.
Yeah. Yeah. And that, it spoke to me because I like to clean my desk before I do homework or whatever, it's like, if things aren't all tidy and together, then I don't feel like I can have that alone time, but that's not the case at all. Like, you can let it go. And I struggle with that for sure. But I think that's exactly the lesson with Mary, is that he's more important and he's there. So.
That's awesome. I loved when you shared about the joy of the Lord being your strength when you're really trying to serve your family and maybe not feeling so great.
Yeah. And that's really helped me. Like, it's so simple, but he gives us his power, to have joy even when it doesn't make sense. And in my case, I know it's for a blessing that I wasn't feeling good. So I was like, gosh, I should be grateful and all this. And, I know some people have difficulty that's just really hard. And it's like, you can still have that joy as your strength, even when it's a hard time of life. But yeah.
It is. Anyone else have any thoughts that came to mind? Amber?
Yeah, Kelly, I loved what you shared. It really made me think of reevaluating our sacrifice of worship toward God, because as you were sharing worshiping the Lord and coming to him and making time for him in the midst of busyness, in the midst of whatever's going on, I feel like there was a season where that was a sacrifice for me. And now I'm finding that that's where I'm at, and things are just messy all the time because that I'm just running to Jesus. I'm like, it doesn't matter what's going on. Like, this has to happen. That I feel like just listening to you, my heart is convicted, thinking, God, what about that early morning that I just have not been able to sacrifice and commit to? And because that would be a real sacrifice right now for me, I think. So I loved thinking on that. I love that different seasons call for a reevaluation of how we're sacrificing to worship our Lord, because we need that refreshing of adoration toward him, because it can get stale, right? Like, I love how things are right now. I love stopping everything, but it can get easy or something doing that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That is such a good point.
Yeah, sorry. I just wanted to add that to what Amber said, about it being too easy when you have that set time of day. And I totally identify with where you are, Kelly, right now, with being home with little ones and it just being a crazy time all the time and you can't find a moment of peace. But it's in those moments that you are like, Lord, I need you right now. Otherwise, I'm not going to make it. Yeah. It's easy when you have that set time every day. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it's easy for you to compartmentalize your faith into okay, here's my time with God in this box over here, and then I'm just going to go about my day. But when your life it feels like you can't get a moment, to breathe, that's when you're constantly just going back to God. Like, I need you and I want to do your will and I want to honor you in whatever it is that you have for me right now. So I totally get that.
I think this will speak to a lot of moms out there who have the same struggles, and all of it. I had them. I used to go, maybe I should go take a shower in the middle of the day because, maybe I could get some alone time. But, moms totally relate to what the reality is that you're talking about. And let's face it, Mary did not have young children.
True.
So, have to remember that too. But anyway, she made the most of her time with Jesus. And I think we can make the most of our time regardless. You know, there's that book written back in the 1600s called Practicing the Presence of God. You know, it's about a guy that worked in the kitchen, and just the whole thing is just his just being so enraptured with his prayer life while he's washing dishes.
Yeah.
And it's such a, you know, it's really cool to hear that coming from a man.
Yeah. Mhm.
You know, I was thinking about, I love that you mentioned that because, you know, even I know all of you, Helen and I are the only ones that have the empty nest right now. But you have, you know, all of the three of you have these young ones at home. And, but yet I know people in my season of life, and maybe Helen does too, that still, even though we don't have children underfoot, there are so many distractions and so many things that will take our attention. And I'm just kind of wanting to brainstorm with you guys right now. And what would a Mary look like in this generation? You know, what would her, what things would she sacrifice in order to be at his feet? What would a life of Mary look like today, do you think?
That's a great question, Shannon. And I feel like a big part of that in this generation would be to sacrifice the need to, like, the feeling that you need to know what's going on in the world at all times, that you need to be, I guess, relevant to the culture and whatnot. Because I feel like a lot of times that can be a big distraction. Just practically speaking, you know, we're constantly on our phones, we're constantly keeping up with the news, on social media, doing all of these different things. I'm feeling like if we're not there and we're not present and we're not engaged in that all the time, that we're missing out on something. But that all needs to, you know, be put to the side in favor of being at Jesus's feet and you know, seeking his face first. So I feel like that would be a big part of it.
Yeah, I think too, a big thing that's a takeaway with Mary is that she wasn't worried about being offensive, like to worship Jesus, you know? And I think that's kind of becoming more and more of a thing where it can be offensive to some people, our faith, and it's a hard thing to even admit. But I think being bold with it and putting him first. So yeah.
Yeah, I would love to. That's exactly what I was thinking, just hitting on she wasn't thinking of who it was offending. And we are, I mean, as you were sharing, like, I can't even help but think like how relevant today a model of Mary is for us. Like anytime we see her in these three particular places in scripture, she's showing that sacrifice of worship in front of people. It's in front of people, right? Everything it's and that's how I feel like we're living in a time where people are offended about everything. They're offended about what is good. They're offended about what is godly. And so, like what you said, just being bold. Like, I was just having a conversation with somebody about not wanting to send my kids to public school. And it's, you know, to someone who's like, why not? Why, you know, and getting even in a conversation about that and speaking about God and, you know, how like, no, and just on that scripture of like, for me and my house, we will serve the Lord, and like being able to just speak out boldly about Jesus, and no matter who's around or who it may offend, like I think is just a great takeaway.
Yeah, not like wanting to be offensive, but it's just worshiping him was more important than what people thought.
Yeah, for sure. She was preaching sermons by her actions. You know, I mean, her words were directed to Jesus probably in praise and worship, if however, whatever form, but she didn't feel it necessary to explain to people. She allowed the picture to tell them. And I just wonder sometime what we could learn from that, you know. I also think that one of the things today that makes it hard is the media and the social media cause us to be more reactionary than reflective, and to ponder things, and to take things in more deeply. And I think every Christian has to make up their own mind about social media, where to draw the line for themselves. But I can have the best of intentions and still spend too much time scrolling.
Sure.
And I try not to. I try not to even turn it on certain hours. I have these boundaries I keep, but it's still easy to get distracted because they're constructed that way. They're designed that way to keep you engaged. But anyway, just wanting that engagement to be on Jesus when we have a spare moment, rather than some of these other things.
Kelly, you touched on one of the scenes was after Lazarus had died, and Jesus waited 4 days, and she came out and she said, if you would have been here, if only you would have been here. And to me, I loved that she felt the freedom to just kind of put it out there. It's not that she was blaming him. Maybe she was, but I just love that we can go to the Lord and with just our authentic selves, right? And in places where we failed, and in places where we think maybe he's failed us, but yet it was for something greater. Of course, we know that. We know the end of the story, but I don't know. What do you guys think about just that type of relationship with the Lord? Do you have that type of relationship where you can go to him and talk to him and things like that?
I think I have to remind myself I can be that honest with him sometimes. Sometimes I think we're taught not to complain and be whiny, or whatever it is. I think of having a 4-year-old right now who we're like, stop whining, but he wants us to just bring our hearts and bring our hurts. And and she's like, where were you? I think it was really like that. And she's just, that was her level of relationship with him, was she could be totally real and honest. And I think that's a great example of that for us, is we don't know the answer, and obviously his ways are best, but she wasn't holding back.
Yeah, I think she was confident, probably because she knew of his love for Lazarus and for her. I think that was really probably the foundational thing. You love me so much. Where were you? And but I love that.
Yep. Something I found interesting when that portion of scripture, like when she is talking about Jesus's love for Lazarus, it's a phileo love, but when Jesus answers back, his love is an agape love. We come to the Lord and we don't realize how deeply and how perfectly he loves us. That's the agape love that he's giving back to us. And I just love, like you were saying too, Kelly, we can go and we just pour it all out before him, and we do have a tendency to hold back. We're not supposed to do that, but it is such a beautiful thing that we can, like Mary, just run to him first and say it like it is.
Yeah.
And it's so good.
Yeah. And she doesn't hold back her best, she doesn't hold back her feelings, but she also doesn't hold back her best when she pours out that perfume. She's just giving him everything. And even if that means her future, I want to worship you even if it costs me my future. I want to worship you even if it costs me all that I have. And not just being completely honest too. It's just, she just wants to love on him and worship him and bless him no matter what it is. And I would say that's consistent in each scene, whether it be upsetting Martha or sharing her full emotions or just giving all that she had. Yeah. Mhm. And I think the Martha thing too, maybe Shannon, like you guys were asking, different phases of life. Sometimes it's the hardest to change things in your own house, like as far as worshiping Jesus. And I feel like that for me, even like it's like the people who know you the best and suddenly you're doing something different. They're kind of like, what? Don't you need to go be doing whatever or something, and maybe especially as a mom, I feel like everyone else needs to be taken care of first. But I think even just in your own home, how can you display that more in a way that is unhindered? It can be really hard, maybe more than around strangers. So, yeah.
I think sometimes I fall into this thought pattern that if I had lived when these women lived, I would have been such a better disciple, because I think, the physical presence, I mean, you would be captivated every minute you were with him. And yet we see how many fell away when times got tough. We'll talk about that in a couple of weeks. But just because he was there physically didn't cause them to always have perfect, faith and devotion. And so what we have, they didn't have, is the presence of the Holy Spirit. So, just to rely on that. And I think sometimes my relationship with God, I'll start kind of ragging on, getting mad at myself for failing in some way. And I kind of have to interrupt myself and deliberately focus back on who I know Jesus to be. And would Jesus say that to me or anyone? No. So then, try to get my headspace back, where he's in control. Well, this has just been so rich today.
So good, ladies. I'm just so encouraged by this conversation, you guys. This has been so good. And Kelly, everything that you have shared, I think we could probably keep talking about all the different things about Mary and what we can learn from her. And I'm looking forward to diving into each of these women over the next several weeks. And as we wind up, I just want to let you know, if you want to join us in this Bible study, you can go over to saltandclay.com and you can get the study In Her Shoes. And it's a download. And so you can just go over there. There it is right there. And just go ahead, run over there, and then you can watch the videos. They're going to be released each week, each Saturday. And you can just join along and listen to the conversation and go ahead and then do the study. So we hope that you are going to join us through these next several weeks leading up to Easter, and what it is to be in the shoes of these women who were so near and dear to Jesus. And so that's our prayer, is that we can really just really connect with each of these women in a way that we just haven't before. And Kelly, I love something that you shared, and I just want to kind of end us with this, is she said that she lived beyond obedience. It was really that heart of worship. And you gave us a challenge. You said, where can we be mindful of sitting at his feet? And I think that's a great question for us to ask each day is, Lord, how can I be present with you? Find those moments to sit with you, sit at your feet and just worship. And he's going to cultivate that heart of worship within us. We just have to give him the space to do it. So thank you, ladies. This has just been such a treat, and I look forward to connecting next week as we talk about Martha. So we'll see y'all next week.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Goodbye.